Hey guys, welcome. I'm going to go over the i2M add-on that I've been making. It's going to be a purely procedural add-on based on using textures and creating meshes out of them with displacements. There's also going to be geometry nodes setup that's going to allow you to have procedural landscapes and switch on and off instances and so on. Tons of features, too many to mention in one moment. So let's go ahead and enable the i2M add-on and then come over here, and you'll originally see something that looks like this. And just for my sake, I actually have to kind of come over here and check out the blend file and make sure I don't have the node tree already in there, because I've been doing lots of beta testing. So jump back over to the view layer. And if you happen to not know that you could do that, if you've got some stubborn data kind of hanging out, you can come right here to the display mode and display the actual blend file and see everything that is in it. And so if you've got this mesh like the cube here, then you could just conceptually delete that out if you wanted to, up to you. Now, all you gotta do when you come in here, and I've got another tutorial covering how this subdivided plane comes in, and you can do the image texture setup here. And just real quick, I guess I could go ahead and throw one in, and I'll go to the D drive, and I should have my futuristic city still there. And it jumps you into edit mode just so you don't end up with any errors. And you could jump over to the EV engine. Now, there are a couple of things you'll have to do just to make it go. There's no material, so you would add your displacement, and it's going to put the 3ds material on. And if you go to the shader editor, you'll see that is all there. And I'll do this kind of quick. From here, you can then add in whatever file that you have, and actually I added that way too soon, so I'll come back, and boom, now it's going to add that in, and that's going to be something you can do a lot with. If you go over to cycles, you'll be able to see that is a true displacement. Let that kind of load, and for some reason I'm continuously defaulted to CPU, and this is a energy suck for the CPU, so just so you know. And I got a control in here for this. Now it looks garbagey, so all you have to do, and you'll see there's no modifiers yet, is you just add the sub-D adaptive. It'll take a second to load up, and then it brings the detail up considerably, and then you can kind of play around with the levels, the exposure. You can turn on persistent data or simplify if you're going to go ahead. Excuse me, if you're going to go ahead and render that out, then it makes it a lot nicer for you. Now I had a button in here, but it was causing errors for it. I'll fix that and put the button back in before the final release. And yes, this is going to be on my Patreon, so if you do want to support the channel, you can go over there, and all levels, you'll have the beta version of this out. And don't forget, you can throw some lights in this. It is an actual mesh, and that way you can cast some really neat and nice shadows. Also, I will be releasing the actual displacement, so everybody can just pick that add-on up free. And you know, if you want to support the channel further, leave that 5-star review, and then you can become a Patreon if you want and get all those extra benefits of all the extra add-ons that are going to come every month. And so if you come down to the material settings for this and then drop down settings, you'll see displacement only. And if you want, you can switch this to bump only and get that same kind of view that we got in the EV engine. And then you can play around with the mid-level, the scale, and so on, and kind of have some fun with that. Now kind of just come back over here and delete all of that. Don't need it in there right now. The fun thing, and I think you may find the first one to be good for prototyping, and this one as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just append in Raycast. That's just what I call it now. It's got a procedural setup that's just going to pop right in for you. And for some reason, it is not coming in with the actual textures and so on, and the node group, excuse me, it's supposed to come in with everything already attached, but that's okay. So presumably, if you have this, all you really need to do is have a repelling collection, an instance collection 1, instance collection 2. You can switch between those instances. So what I'll do is I'll just make a new collection. I'll call this one repel. Okay. And we can put this in the scene, pretty much anywhere, doesn't matter. And just for visual sake, I'll shade that smooth. And then for my secondary collection, it really doesn't matter. You could go into Blender Kit, go to Models if you have Blender Kit, and just type in low poly tree just to pull in an asset for us. I'm going to take the empty, delete it. It's going to zero out to the world. I can actually hide all of that. G and Y, bring it over, and Control J, just join it up. Kind of killed the one shtick there because that's a skin. I need to apply that, so you never know what funky stuff they come through with. Alt H will bring everything back. And so now with this, I can hit M and create a new collection with this one, and this can be instance 1. Hit OK. Let's bring the cursor over here, and I'm going to throw, well, cube's not a good representation because I've got a proxy that's set up as a cube. So what we'll do is we'll just put the cone in there, and we'll make that one a new collection, and we'll call this one instance 2, and hit OK. Now these can be put over here, hidden, do whatever you want with them. Come back and click the plane, and then grab your repel folder, grab your instance 1, and grab your instance 2. And everything's going to come in, however, but you have a lot of features here that you can go ahead and modify with, and you'll see that you can switch the instances real quick. Proxy should be on by default. Yeah, proxy is on, so if you turn that off, you'll be able to see what it is, and then the proxy type. And it doesn't look like my is viewport button made it in. Lot to do, lot to do. Okay, so all the buttons will change. It'll be very intuitive to see all that there. So for the scale right here, you can switch that, maybe hold shift and bring the scale down so you can have the instances to be like a good size. And as you can see already, the shape of the mesh is going to dictate where this goes. So if we go into wireframe, you'll be able to see that that is actually repelling everything. And you can control the, I'm trying to talk too fast. I want to make this a long tutorial. You can control the density very easily. You can control the proximity. You can control the ray length as well. So that way you can modify this if you know a little bit more about the Raycast node. That's not going to do a whole lot right now. You do have the subdivide button. I would say be very careful with that. I've got that set to 1, and perhaps I might set it to 0 just so you can kind of go in there. Now you could grab one of these, Shift D, and copy it, and because it's already in that collection, it's going to react that way. So however you scale or rotate this thing, it's going to cause a proximity reaction. Okay, so I'll go back to solid, and the terrain is going to have quite a few options. So you've got detail 1, detail 2, and I can switch these instances. In fact, just for this purpose, I could take them out. I'll hide all of that fun stuff. And grabbing just the terrain, you can take the scale. Let's bring it down to like 1, maybe a little bit lower. You can subdivide this, and then you'll have a vertice count. I combined that. It's actually a vec2 I combined into a float. Don't ask me how I did it, but I did it. And then you've got a 4D, so you can animate this thing. If you don't know how to animate, you can grab a timeline, just like so. All right, and now this may change a little bit, but when things come in funky, you've got 2 types of rotation. You've got a switch to go between them. You can use the Euler, which I believe is when it's on, and then when you turn it off, you will get the vector rotation. Okay, so it's opposite. So if you wanted to rotate these, you can shift anything that you want and make tons and tons of adjustments, and then you could just say hit play again, and these are all going to go with it. And the cool thing is, these should work with proximity, and I'll just jump in and grab the proximity factor. And so this is going to work with the proximity as well. It's all tied together. The density is tied together with that as well. And you can literally put anything you want. So I'll jump over to the Eevee engine, and let's just say we create 2 materials, and I'll make one of these materials green. I'll make the other one blue. Do whatever you want with it. Come back over to the modifier panel, and then we can start grabbing any material that you've got in here. So I'll grab material 1, and I'll grab the second material here. And if we kind of zoom in, we'll see that these now have a material applied to them, and I can switch the material instantly if I want, pardon me, and then I can switch the instances to the trees. I don't know if that makes sense, but that looks really cool. And it's all going to adjust. The density may change a little bit according to it, but that's okay. It's just kind of by design. And you can switch materials here in the node as well, and switch instances. I mean, not in the node, in the add-on. Like I said, I'll clean up the add-on so you can do a lot more with it here instead of having to go back to this panel. Like I'm going to resolve the instance thing, the instance scale. I'll probably still leave it a vec3 so that way you guys can still move it. Now, just go ahead, pause, and go back to standard view. So you've got the grid size, and this is procedurally just going to create anything you want, the size you want. If you wanted to change and squish this down, it's not going to hurt anything. And so there's actually more this can do, a lot more. But I think the imagination is going to be the only thing that like slows you down. I'm going to add a bunch of other features to this as well. If I sound a little choppy, that's because I am. This is fresh off the press. And so let me go ahead and bring this back to 25. It should default come in at 25. And I'm going to add some other functionalities so that these objects aren't just repelling, but they'll have some other features as well. Just kind of make it more intuitive and more procedural. So you can kind of like do anything you can think of. Like I said, you got the 4D animation set up here, which is pretty fun. And that's going to be about it for now. Don't forget, you've got your exposure settings on here. So if you wanted to kind of change things, you can see the lighting and see how like amazing that's actually going to end up looking, then you can do that. Hey guys, real quick, if you want to support the channel, you can jump on over to the Patreon, and what you're going to do is you could sign up for the least tier and get updates every single month. You'll get a free add-on. And if you sign up for the second one, you're going to get all of the free add-ons. That's going to include any updates, specialized videos, and training. And I will actually do some tutorials on how you can make your own add-on as well. I know there's a lot of free stuff out there, but it's not concise. You have to kind of like jump around. So if you have specific needs, then if you're in one of those higher tiers, we can do some one-on-one work, and you can get a specific add-on made to your liking. If you want to go to the highest tier, you will get merch three or four times a year. You'll get merch. So I'm not really making much off of that. It's more like you're just getting mugs and t-shirts and stuff with cool designs on them. So jump on over there, and don't buy the merch just yet. I got to put the artwork on it, but you can get in and get add-ons every single month. And not just one, but every single one that I make during the month you can get. So that's going to be about it. Appreciate you guys. And one quick tip while you're using this, the current setup, if you see all this shading looking bad and garbagey, it's okay. Everything is fixable. You can just either increase or decrease the scale. And yes, you could absolutely make cloth with this, or oceans, or whatever you want. All right, so I add a little bit of a texture here so we can kind of see. And let's bring the exposure right about there. I didn't mention it yet, but we have a store mesh object data here. This will be built-in static. So as you're moving things around, you could store this position. Okay. Now let's say I wanted to rotate this and maybe move it over just a little bit. I can add that as another position, and then I can rename that inside the add-on for 2, and then I can switch between those. And if you have a light, you can add the light, and then say maybe you wanted to move it over here. You can add that position. That would be position 2. And there's no limit to the combination of those different things you can do. You can also, if you're using the Light Magic add-on, it's going to be the same principle for the storage setup. So if I want to change this to red and add another position. I could check between the blue and the red. Then if I want to change the power, and I could add all these into any combination that I want and defuse that just a touch. Maybe bring it up. That's going to be another thing I can store. And I'll add that. So you can go between all these different settings. Makes it very convenient for putting together a scene quickly and then prototyping and demoing things out. And that's kind of the goal of this add-on, is to give you a procedural setup so you can do that. Now on top of that, let's see if I got a camera in the scene. I don't see one. All right, there's my camera. So if I pull up this setup right here, and I'll just hit double tap G and then hit Z twice, and it'll kind of just go straight forward for you. It's pretty cool. So if you hit G, Y, and then Y, you'll snap a different axis. And if you hit X, you go a different way, and hit X again a different way, Z, Z. And you can kind of switch around like that. You can do the same thing with the rotate. You hit X and then rotate it one way, and then X will rotate it straight down, which is pretty cool. And then Y, and then Y again. So that's a lot of cool things you can do with that. So we can add in the camera as well. And we'll just call this camera 1. Call it whatever you want. I'll hit a rotate, double tap X, hit G, double tap Z. Maybe I wanted to zoom in on this spot. Maybe I want it right there, so I don't want it to go outside of my scene. And I can add that position. And you can spin this down if you want. And I can switch between the two camera views. And while I'm in that, I can switch back over here and switch between everything else as well. Or you could just create one complete scene setup and then go completely set up another scene with all the lights in a completely different way, and then variations of those. And then of course you can name it accordingly so you can keep track of it. Now if you were to actually delete something out of the scene, like say I took the camera and deleted it, you still got the actual real storage points in here. Let me see if I can go over to scripting. No, it's not really going to show what I want. Actually, yes, it will. Just have to adjust stuff. So, no attribute, none type modifier. That's just because I've got something deselected. You could actually still switch the different camera indexes. They're still there. So it's a true collection storage. And if you want to get rid of everything in it, you can hit this button and it'll just zap everything. And it not only does that, but it refreshes and knocks out the sub data, like orphan data and things like that, fake users, whatever else you might have had. And if you want to get rid of these one at a time, you can. Or if you want to take point and move that to the top, and then maybe this was 0.2, or rather this one will actually be 0.3 since I got it to. And I can move these up because I'm just working with them. And that'll give you a ton of different options to kind of move things throughout your scene. And this will come default closed, so don't freak out if you don't see it right away. It is there. And then when you select the plane, you'll get a drop down with a bunch of different things, so you can change the density and the proximity and all that good stuff. All right, guys, I really appreciate you watching. This is still a work in progress, but the add-on as it stands, the free version and the beta testing version you can get on Patreon, are both fully functional and will work. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to smash that subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.